80% of Americans experience being unemployed at some point in their life, and the risk of economic insecurity is very high. 4 out of 5 adults suffer from unemployment and near poverty. Since 2010, when the unemployment rate reached its peak of 9.5%, the number of jobless Americans has gone down. However, 7.3% of people in the U.S. are still without jobs.
Long-term unemployed officially means anyone who's been unemployed for at least 6 months and cannot find a job. We have roughly 5 million long-term unemployed workers. Half of those have been unemployed for at least a year. A large share have been unemployed for a couple of years or longer, but the official definition is 6 months or longer.
One of the ways I feel like our government should approach the problem of poverty is that I think they really need to offer more incentives for people who are trying to find work. Oftentimes people find work, but the pay is so low, they rather be on unemployment, and I feel that's counterproductive. I think that there should be some kind of incentive where if you do find a job, you receive like an extra stipend until you kind of get yourself back on your feet. I feel that oftentimes people think the job pay is so low that they rather stay on unemployment and collect it rather than go out and be a productive part of society by contributing to the workforce.
Half of the residents in New York City are economically insecure, and 1/3 of the residents in Detroit are living below the official poverty line, which is about the same in Phoenix. In 2012 and the 3 years prior, 15% of Americans, approximately 46.5 million, lived at or below the poverty line. It had increased by 249,000 people since the previous year, and in addition, 49 million people lived in food insecurity.
The good news is that hunger isn't getting worse. The bad news is that there are still 49 million people living in our great country who are food insecure. 49 million people who don't know where their next meal will come from. 49 million people who are forced to choose between basic needs like rent, utilities, and food. 49 million people who don't have the resources necessary to make ends meet. 49 million people who are hungry. That's 1 out of every 6 people living in this country who are food insecure.
My opinion on unemployment and poverty in the United States. Well, unemployment is something that's been with the United States, from before the United States was even the United States. Unemployment is something that rises and falls with economic ebbs and flows. In the last few years, we've had a serious problem with it. Unemployment, what it can do in the country is not just bring down the ability of people to earn money, but it increases crime, it increases desperation. It creates situations in cities that they cannot sustain themselves. If you have unemployment in the city and people aren't able to work, if they're not able to work, they're not able to pay their taxes. If they're not able to pay their taxes, the city services dry up, services like fire agencies and law enforcement. And then what you have is a very difficult situation. A good example of this would probably be Detroit. Is an excellent example. This is a city that is going bankrupt because of unemployment in the area. As far as poverty, that goes hand in hand with unemployment. Poverty, if you go around the country, you're talking about economies of scale. Here in Southern California, there's a lot of money that you need to make in order to pay your rent, in order to pay your utilities, in order to pay your mortgage. If you were to live somewhere that you don't require as much money. If you were to live out in Alaska, if you were to live in Montana, it's cheaper to live out there, but also the money that you make for the work that you do is not as much either. I have colleagues around the country that are firefighters. We get paid different wage scales. I get paid a little more in California than perhaps a firefighter in Idaho or Montana or Missouri would get paid. But it's also more expensive for me to live in Southern California.
Some people, though, argue whether work should be necessary. For example, many years ago, people did not have jobs. Rather, they grew food and built houses to survive directly. In addition, futurists believe that increases in unemployment indicate that technology is getting more advanced and that soon machines will be doing all of our work. However, many people still think that unemployment is a problem and have hopes that its rate will continue downwards.
You're either unemployed and receiving all benefits, or you make enough and, well, according to the government, you make enough, but you really don't make enough to be on your own without any assistance. So I feel there needs to be a step in between: assistance for those who are not working at all, and then incentives for people who have a job. Maybe it's not exactly they're not getting paid as much as someone who has more experience or an education, but there should be some kind of incentive for people who are, working 3 jobs and trying to stay out of unemployment. There should be more incentive for that, I think.